let's cut right to the chase. Creative people are pretty nuts, and I know this because I'm one of them too. I've been fortunate to interview so many fascinating people over the years, mostly musicians and actors and, well, creatives all over the globe. If you're like me, you wonder how they got there and how did they overcome the very human issues we all face to become the people we admire now? That's what this show is all about. Think of it like a warm bath for the soul. I mean, when you get down to it, we're all in this together, so let's do something good with the time we have left. This show is my love letter to the human condition. This, my friends, is Sentimental Illness.
All right. Wow. Gosh, I love that intro. There's something, I don't know what it is, but I love that intro so much. Thank you so much to Jürgen Munkeby for allowing me to use that music. It hits my copyright strike every time, but hey, thank you, brother. I appreciate it. So, hey, I've got a great guest today, somebody I deeply treasure as a friend and as a musician, and I can't wait to introduce you to him. But I do want to share something about last night. As you know, this show is called Sentimental Illness. Welcome. I had a tremendously long night last night for a number of reasons. I won't go into some of the personal reasons, but I know this feels a bit like exaggeration, but I have a really, really big problem with my neck. Long story short, I'm getting old. I know I talk about this every time, but I did something to my neck last night, and I have no idea what it was. It wasn't work-based, but it kept me up all night. I mean, I've literally been up all night long. I think maybe I slept an hour, and then, of course, I had a really insane dream the entire time, which I'm actually going to share with you now because I think it's actually relevant to my experience in life right now, and I think it might make great fodder for the show when I bring Josiah on. I've heard over the years that God talks to you through dreams, and I've had a really compelling, memorable set of dreams over the last few years that are exciting and terrifying, to be frank. And some of you have heard the stories. I have a very close friend in the Seattle radio business who's a legend, honestly. Started Twisted Tunes 30 years ago. His name is Spike O'Neill. And I shared that story with him. So back in 2016, if you followed my show that long, you would know that I told him this huge apocalyptic story about the end of the world and meeting Jesus and all this other stuff. And it was pretty wild, but it's so burned into my brain that I have to say that I feel like I really witnessed sort of a end times judgment thing. I wrote about it. You can find it online. But again, you know, if you're interested in hearing more about it, send me an email, rob@rockstarsuperhero, and I'll gladly send it to you. Last night I had a dream where I had a number of friends with me, and we were flying around in a helicopter, and this woman was flying the helicopter, but she had never had helicopter lessons. And I have no idea why we trusted her, but somehow we did, and we're flying up and down this street. We're literally hovering over a street. And when we get towards the end of the street, there's literally stop signs, stop lights in the air. And there's power lines, and I'm saying, set it down, set it down, set it down. We're going to crash. And I took the stick away from her, and I ended up crashing the helicopter into the ground, which wasn't good, obviously. We survived, duh, it's a dream. But what we ended up doing immediately, because it's a dream, is we go over to this guy's house. Now, I didn't know it at the time, but the guy's house that we went to was this very well-known person who I actually know. Shall remain unnamed because I almost feel like, even though this is a dream, that this was some weird personal affront. But I went to his house and he was having a dinner party. And at the same time, his house was being worked on. So of the, say, 10,000 square feet of the house, about 6,000 square feet of the house was being remodeled. And everybody was staying away from that. I couldn't find anybody, though. They kept disappearing into other rooms. And as I stumbled around the house, trying not to step on nails and whatnot, I would go around a corner and I would see one of my buddies, and they would just they would lean back, and then sort of dart into the room. It felt like they were avoiding me, that they were sort of escaping. And I wondered, why were they doing that? And it happened over and over again. Now, here's the thing. It's a dream. It didn't have any resolution. But when I woke, it occurred to me that my dream was that I know so many super famous, wealthy, successful in the world, my eyes too. But I've never been in that group. And I admit I've always wanted to be in that group for whatever reason. Maybe I thought I deserved it, that God wanted something big from me. I wanted to have this grand life. But the thing I thought about this morning as I was preparing for the show was I was invited into the room, but I was never actually invited to the table, so to speak. And it made me think about friendships and how we assume people feel differently about us than we do. And, when you get down to it, do people really know me? Do they care? This is my show, so I'm going to talk about me, but do they care? And should it matter? Am I that overwhelming a personality that people will allow me into their world, but never care about me? Is it all in my head? Am I projecting? Should it matter? And then I thought, I got this great guest today. And it made me think about my relationship with God, my creator. And it made me think, well, how does God feel about me? Am I invited to his table? It's a lot to ponder. Look, man, there's no fancy ending to this experience I've had, this weird dream, but I will say that I really do believe that God speaks to us through dreams. I'm not saying that was one of those moments, but I don't know. It feels really applicable to my life. Like, what table am I actually invited to? Where do I actually matter? Something to think about. I like this. This is fun. All right, let's get to the man in the green room. This is going to embarrass him, but I love Josiah. I know he knows this. I know he knows this. I've been a fan of his for a number of years. He actually was touring around the country in his little Prius back in the early teens, I guess. So I want to say it was 2012. It could have been 13 when I first met him, but it's been over 10 years. And, he was playing at churches, and he's had quite the career. He's a fantastic singer and songwriter. He's worked with some legends in the business. I'm sure we'll get there. I'm positive you've heard some of his work, and today we'll get a chance to dig a little deeper into the dude, see who he's working with, if at all, and, of course, what his plans are for the future. I know he has made a pretty big shift in his life. He was married not too long ago, so congrats to that. But this is all to say I don't know exactly what Josiah is moving towards, but I think we can agree it's probably towards the light. Always to the light. So, anyway, my buddy from the outskirts of Sacramento, California, and a singer of songs that hit the heart like an anthem. This is my buddy, Josiah James.
Hey,
buddy. How are you?
Doing great. How are you?
Well, if you were waiting in the green room there, you heard my neck is killing me, man. I'm fat and old.
It's actually kind of funny that you mentioned that. I literally went to the doctor's like a week ago for neck problems as well, and had to get some help that way, and on muscle relaxants right now to help it out, because it's been about a week now that it's been jacked up. But so when you mentioned that, I was like, oh, I feel that. So like on a visceral level. Yeah. Definitely dealing with the same kind of issue. But yeah, I'm doing well outside.
Good. It gets worse as you get older. I'm sure you've heard this.
Yeah.
And I'm sorry. I'll apologize in advance. So, hey, before we get to the fun stuff and the questions and everything else, I saw that you got married.
Yes,
It's actually,
I did.
it's been like 2 years, right? Something
Yeah,
like
a little
that.
over 2 years. Yeah, we got married on December 28th of 2021.
Wow. Congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Yeah. I know this is kind of bizarre, and it's been a really long time since we've actually physically seen each other in person.
Yeah, it's been at least like 7 years, I feel.
Yeah. I think it was the last tour you did up here, and then you and I went to lunch. We had we went to that Mexican restaurant.
Yeah. I remember that. That was a
Well,
long
good.
time.
Yeah. And I know I said this then, and I still mean it today. I know it doesn't apply anymore. But deep down inside, if I ever owned a record label, I would sign you instantly because I think you are a brilliant musician. But I know that part of your life has, things have switched. It's just life. It's the path of life. We go through transition and change. And, I'm interested to hear why certain aspects of your, life and musical career have changed. But I'm just grateful to know you, and I wouldn't have discovered you without you blessing us with the gift you have.
Well, thank you very much. Yeah. Things have definitely changed a little bit over the years, for sure.
Yeah. Good. Well, okay. So the show's part variety show, so we're going to get to the fun stuff here, okay? You ready?
All right, I'm ready.
Here's this week's fun stuff.
Couldn't come up with a cooler title. Had to just be fun stuff.
I think that's the best one you can come up with.
Maybe it's just the short, sweet, simple thing,
The fun stuff.
All right. Today is April 30th, 2024. But stuff that occurs on this day. So there's, I don't know what it is about America in general, but it seems to be hitting all over the world as well, which is this idea of creating holidays around the silliest things. And today, in America at least, is National Mr. Potato Head Day.
And I mean, this is my favorite day of the year. This is what I celebrate every year around this time.
So I'm glad that you said that. So I guess I have to say I'm curious. So I'm, as you know, and I say this every show, but I'm much older than you. I did not have a Mr. Potato Head. I do know that they existed when I was young, but I'm curious if it was a thing for you.
I definitely had, I can't remember if it was mine or one of my siblings, but we definitely had a Mr. Potato Head when I was like very young. I actually forgot those things existed. Obviously, I haven't watched Toy Story in too long.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing too. I mean, may I ask? I don't recall. How old are you now? Maybe 34?
34, exactly. Yeah.
Wow, look at me go. And I didn't look that up on Wikipedia or anything.
Oh gosh, that probably is on Wikipedia.
Yeah, it's kind of silly. Toys. My generation's toys were Legos, Lincoln Logs, Tinker Toys. It was all the stuff you built with. My dream, my absolute dream, Josiah, was owning a full erector set. Do you know what an erector set is?
No.
Okay, so for older people, what it was a set of metal pieces with nuts and bolts, motors, all sorts of things, and you would build cranes and cars, and you would build them out of these metal pieces, and they were very large. So, for example, if you built a car, it would have a little motor. It would actually drive it, but you would have to figure out how to run the system together and how to create the electronics for it. So it was super advanced and incredibly expensive. You'll have to look it up after we're done today. But erector sets, so we're talking in 1974, an erector set was probably $50. It was just a tremendous amount of money, but it was every little kid's dream who built things, if you were into models or this sort of thing. I don't know why I'm being so sentimental about it, but that is the name of the show. I missed it.
Yeah.
I missed it. Those were good times. Okay. back to what silly things happened today. Another silly thing that's happening. Well, it's not silly. It's important to me and probably to you. It's two things: International Guitar Month and International Jazz Day, invented by, of all people, Herbie Hancock a number of years ago, because somebody's got to care about America's institution of music.
Absolutely. I didn't even know it was National Guitar Month.
Yeah. International. It's even bigger.
Sorry, international. It's actually funny, and we'll get to it in a little bit, but my boss currently at my job, he's actually the guy that sold me my Taylor guitar 20 years ago.
Wow.
When he worked at a guitar shop. And that's how I know my boss at the restaurant I'm at.
Nice. Now, and I know we're going to get to that, but you're at a Michelin Star restaurant, yes?
Yes. Yeah, we just got our first star about 2 years ago, and then retained it this past year. And it was that was the first year I started the year before is when I started my job there. So it was really, really exciting and really, really fun for this whole team to get that.
Nice. Well, fantastic. Yeah, I do want to know more about that, so we'll get there. What I try to keep away from on this show is politics. Unless you have something you can't wait to share about politics or your own personal take on something, we'll skip it.
Oh boy. Yeah, no.
Because I'm
totally happy that we don't have to talk too much.
Yeah, but then I need a bumper that says not fun stuff.
Not fun stuff.
All right. So some birthdays. Kirsten Dunst is 41 years old today, which kind of freaks me out because I discovered her, I think like most people, when she was a 12-year-old in Interview with the Vampire.
Oh, yeah. Forgot she was in that.
Yeah. Gal Gadot, who plays Wonder Woman, is a surprising 38 years old today. She holds it well. And Ana de Armas, who was in the Marilyn Monroe biopic Blonde, and gosh, what was she in? Blade Runner 20.
Yeah, 2049.
2049. Thank you. I almost said 2042.
Yeah, and also don't forget Knives Out.
I haven't seen it. I know she's in it, but I haven't seen it. Is it fantastic?
Oh, it's incredible.
Really?
Yeah, it's like a very, very good movie.
Okay, so I'm about to unleash some idiocy here, which I do all the time. I've never seen Clue. I've never played the game Clue. So I have isn't Knives Out a Clue thing?
It's not Clue, but it's similar. It's its own story.
It's a mystery story.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. It has a Clue kind of S to it. But I've never actually seen Clue either. I've played the game, but never seen the movie.
Okay.
So I don't. I guess you could say I don't have a clue, but yeah.
Wait a minute, I've got a sound effect for this.
Womp, womp, womp.
So I do have the sad trombone somewhere hidden on my board. I don't know where it's at, so I'm not going to pretend and hit something like no, I'm not going to. The hardest part about preparing for today was that normally this section is a great conversation starter. The problem with today is, of all the birthdays that were listed, I mean, we're talking like 90 of them were TikTok stars.
Oh, yeah. Which soon is not going to be a thing, apparently.
God, I hope so. I hope so. I mean, no offense to anybody. I want people to thrive where they're at. I want everybody to be happy. I used to be pretty envious of people who were having success when I felt like that was unfair to me and all that other. I deserve success too. But no, I've learned over the years to care, to be open-minded to that thought. However, I will say that any of us who are past a certain age probably look at that and say, okay, but how do you expect that to actually be a career, a sustaining career? You know?
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah, it's quite unreal that is like, you know, a viable source of income.
Yeah. Significant income. But I mean, when you get down to marketing, it is all about, you know, people following you, who's influencing what. I mean, whether it's, I don't know, name a magazine, Elle, Shape, Mademoiselle, GQ, they all feature attractive people and they all sell us things inside of those magazines. And those magazines have just gone online. I mean, that's how I see it.
Yeah. No, it is pretty wild. Just the amount of popularity somebody can get off of one silly like TikTok reel or whatever.
Right.
My sister actually is, I think she just broke 300,000 followers on her Instagram. But the cool thing about, I'm going to brag about my sister. She's got this Instagram called All Things New. And she does home like remodeling decor. Mm-hmm. But when she was starting to do all that stuff, we're like, you're doing all this really cool stuff. Like, you should post this online. She's like, no, I don't want to. She like always been kind of slightly an introvert.
Right.
Never really cared about too much attention. And it was myself, my wife, and some other people were just like, you need to post. And she just started posting things, and then naturally, like, she just got like 300,000 like followers. I think I don't know if I should be saying this, but I think she said that she surpassed her husband's income with that like this past like month or so, which her husband was the sole provider of the house. She was stay-at-home mom of 3 kids, and it's just insane. Like, so there's like upsides to those kind of situations where it's like, oh, people that work really hard and aren't like seeking that, like, right, are being rewarded. But then there's these people that are trying so hard to be like famous. And, well, no, like I think what you're doing is great, but like there's like people that are like trying overly. Like I have friends that I'm just like, what you're doing, you don't really believe in. You're just trying to get views. You're just trying to, get popularity, and it is so, I don't know. It's just such a not an enjoyable thing to watch.
Yeah. No, I totally understand that. I mean, good for her. Tell her hello, congratulations. I'm really happy. Is any friend of yours or a family member is somebody I would consider somebody I care about. I think that's fantastic. And I admit, though, then I do think there's a third channel. So there's the person like your sister who, I don't want to say doesn't care, but she is more than happy just doing it because it's pleasurable for her. She likes to share her ideas and thoughts, and people have become attached to it. Then there's the other side, right? You mentioned the people who are desperate for attention, who drop colored balloons on their head in front of a church and expect people to react to it and say, "That's cool. I'm going to give you $1."
That sounds like an actual video you've seen.
Yeah,
I haven't seen that one.
No, but I have seen that. That is correct.
People are crazy.
And then there's this sort of third channel, which I'm in, which is, I genuinely love what I'm doing, but for some reason, now I may have a good following, don't get me wrong, but for some reason I haven't been able to catch on yet. Now, I really truly believe, as much as I may suck at this, I am sincere, and it's because I care about the human condition. I care about music, as you well know, and I care about the influence of those things in our world, because I do believe that we can do better if we know better and we're surrounded by better, right? It's this idea that people are our purpose.
Yeah, absolutely.
Cool. Well, okay, so here's the big one of the day. Adolf Hitler died in 1945 on this day.
Oh, wow.
Supposedly.
Now, theories. Gotta love conspiracy theories.
Right. Here's the thing. No matter what, the dude obviously responsible for a combination of heinous acts, empowering heinous people, proof of a broken world, and ideas have so much power when people are easily swayed. But obviously, clearly he's not to be celebrated, but man, you got to have a take on that. You know what I mean? Were you obsessed with history, trivia, that sort of thing as a young man? Like when I was 10, Life magazine. I don't know if you remember Life magazine, but Life magazine was this very large, like giant-sized periodical that came out in the I want to say started in the late 30s and went through maybe 2000, 99, 2000, and got smaller as it got older. But its fame came from sharing unedited photos of beautiful things and awful things. And, for example, one of the most famous photos ever taken was of a woman who commit suicide by jumping off the Empire State Building. And she landed on a car, and the photograph of her laying in a car, she looks like she's in a sarcophagus. She looks beautiful. There's no blood. It's just this incredible but disturbing and distressing photo of this woman who had killed herself, and all these people standing around the car looking at her. A few months later, there's photos of the atrocities of World War II. And I was just immensely drawn to what I didn't understand about the hatred involving, not the German people, but the German government, right? That Nazi government and the murder of all of these Jewish people. I didn't understand why somebody would hate a collective of people so much that wanted to exterminate them all. I still don't fully understand it. But Life magazine featured this in huge pictorials. And it was just, it's one of those things, it's like a tsunami video. You watch it and it's awful and people are dying, but it's also so unbelievable in its size and its scale and its devastation that you can't help but watch the car wreck, so to speak. And that's how I feel about Hitler. I'm deeply fascinated by him and recognize how horrible that entire era was for so many millions of people, and how it still echoes today. But boy, they've made some great TV shows.
Yeah, I was literally just watching a TV show last night that references, I don't want to give spoilers on the show, but in the show The Gentleman on Netflix.
Oh, I love that show.
Oh, so you know which part I'm talking about? Yeah. So I just watched that last night, and I was just like, whoa.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah, for people who aren't paying attention, that's another great thing online right now. The Gentleman, the movie, I love the movie so much, so it was easily motivating to get to the series as well. I do want to get to you. I mean, the reason you're here today isn't a reason really outside of me asking you to be here. I truly cherish what we have, as minimal as it is and as far as distant as it's been, in the sense of, you not actively touring anymore or living 1,000 miles away from me doesn't change the fact that I still listen to a lot of your old material. I enjoy you as a person immensely. You've always been a very transparent person. And I think part of what this show is about is seeking how we can all sort of withstand this world together. What are the tricks of, overcoming? How do you survive a moment, a series of changes? How much of your now is a reflection of your early years, for example? And I knew you would be very clear with me. I don't know anything about your personal life, and I don't necessarily have to know. But the part I always remember about you is you would share stories from the stage, as you were setting up to play the next song. And you were just always intriguing to me, Josiah.
Thank you.
So, yeah, you're welcome. So I guess what I would say is I want to ask a really basic question that everybody who's a bad interviewer asks, but I'm curious. How were you formed? I don't mean the sense of formed in your mother's womb, but as a person, as a creative, as an artist, what do you believe gave you the musical attributes, the sensibilities that you wield today? You know, what is it about you that you believe makes you now?
Well, definitely a million things.
Sure.
But I don't know. I think growing up, I grew up in a small town called Cool, California.
Yeah.
So I think just living in that town alone is why my puns are so bad. Because I grew up in a pun.
Yeah.
But yeah, I was the youngest of 5, and I think like growing up, I had ADHD. I was like definitely pretty. I wouldn't say depressed, but like I definitely dealt with when I was like I remember being in junior high, and I used to be kind of suicidal.
Wow.
I never officially tried to commit suicide, but I always thought about it. And as an adult, getting therapy and like talking to, psychologists about that kind of stuff, it made me come to realize as a kid, I was definitely very neglected. And because of my ADHD, like I wasn't really treated super well by some adults. They just thought I was a problem child. And so I wasn't getting attention, and people just thought like, I was just a big problem child kind of thing. So I think I turned to music to get those feelings and those thoughts and trying to process all that out. So I wrote a lot when I was like in high school and early 20s. And I didn't realize that, as a kid and even as a young adult, I didn't realize that I was neglected. I didn't realize that these are the feelings like that I deep down was feeling. So everything I sang about was me just trying to understand that. And a lot of it was definitely faith-based. And, my faith is what helped me through those times. And I think that, why I wrote what I wrote was never to like sell something. I always despised the Christian music industry side of things, where it was like all about money and like, let's write this song because it'll sell.
Right. Christians will like it.
Yeah. Christian moms that spend all their time listening to radio are going to love it.
Right.
But I just naturally sang and wrote about my, faith. And I definitely know that that's what kind of saved me in that time. And I remember it's the thing that pulled me out of that dark pit of suicidal feelings when I was in junior high. And I've definitely, like, to be completely honest, I've definitely, since junior high, I've had this ups and downs in life where I'm like, not really happy with life. But every time I turn, I remember the last time I like really thought about that was I went through a really bad breakup, and I was a definite what do you call it, hopeless romantic. And so like I put a lot of like investment into relationships I was in, and when one of them didn't work out, I was just like talking to my mom on the phone one day, and I was like, I don't really want to live anymore. Way over dramatic back then, but that's what I felt. That was the true feeling. And my mom was just like, "What's that going to solve?" Like I don't know. Maybe like a 1 in a million chance that what she said was the right thing. Like for somebody else, that could have been the wrong thing, but for me, it resonated. I was like, "Yeah, I don't think that would solve anything. That wouldn't help me out." And so I kind of always think about that all the time. Whenever I'm feeling down, I'm definitely now in a place where I probably some of the happiest I've been in my life in a long time. But yeah, I guess that's kind of part of what shaped me into what I am, who I am, and how I write and how I think.
Wow. So you said that you, and I don't want to use your words against you, but I find it interesting to use the word neglected.
Yeah.
So how did you recognize that? I mean, you went through counseling. You mentioned that, but how did you come to the realization that there was neglect involved? I mean, do you mind sharing a little bit how you define neglect in your specific experience?
Yeah, I mean, for me, like, so my mom was always pretty much there, which is why I have a very close relationship with my mom. It was definitely like a dad thing. I love my dad, and it's not like I still talk to him and everything. But when I grew up, he was a youth pastor, and my family ran a Christian concert venue, which is kind of also a introduction for me into the music world. When I was very little, I would be in the back playing
Makes
video
a lot
games
of sense. Yeah,
while that was happening. But they were always just so busy, like especially my dad, like, and all the attention was on like everybody. And so I was kind of like left in the background, like all the time. Yeah. So, I mean, that's like the short answer to the neglect side of things.
It's tough stuff. I mean, it's hard. Everybody longs for connection, and they don't know why they're not getting it. But when they see their dad somewhere else, I mean, I've been guilty of that unintentional neglect of my own children. And I don't know if I've learned very well from knowing that I've done that. I think there's some behavioral things that you just need to learn how to overcome, be counseled through, to walk through. But no, I appreciate you saying that out loud, Josiah, because it's always interesting to me how much we are captured by the things we assume we're experiencing versus the things that we're really experiencing. And right, like there's this constant sense of, and I'm not saying this about what you've gone through. That's not what I mean. It seems to me that every human experiences some form of dysmorphia. The idea of either body dysmorphia, right? We're not attractive enough to ourselves, so therefore we must be ugly to everybody else. We're not tall enough. We don't have curly hair, right? We don't get the X kind of love that my sister got, but I get the Y kind of love that my sister doesn't get, but it's not the love because I want the X love. You know what I'm saying? It's an interesting thing how there's this, it's not a collective brokenness, it's an individualized brokenness, and it's so important to pursue a relationship someday that I guess I would call a professional relationship, and say, who can help me walk through these things that I don't necessarily understand about my life and my experiences, because I think I am remembering them incorrectly. Does that make any sense? Am I just rambling?
Yeah. No. That makes sense.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's I think think about therapy. I think it just unlocks a lot of thoughts that you just like you forgot about. You don't like remember. You didn't think, because as a kid you're like, and younger, you have a different viewpoint of the world, and then when you can step back and look at what that world actually was like, it just creates a whole different picture. Yeah.
No, I mean, excuse me. I'm obviously quite grateful that you've gone through it and that you're willing to share it with us. But it's a reminder, honestly. I mean, honestly, excuse me, I'm going to cough again. It's a reminder to me as the host of this show that I guarantee you we all need therapy, but I especially need it because I am still I'm an angry man. I carry a lot of weight that I know I don't need to carry, but I have never been able to shed. I grew up in a I believe a very loving household. But, as an adult, you can always look back and start to say, like, I mean, these things happened, and I never really thought about them much. But now as an adult, I can see how they, again, echoed in my own behaviors as a future adult. And, and to continue those behaviors on. My wife and I promised each other, and we're doing our best with this as we can, but we promised each other about 5 or 6 years ago when our marriage was at a real crossroads that we not only needed to invigorate our own lives together as a couple, but we needed to make sure we broke as much as we could the sort of the sins of the father, right? To try not to carry that past forward, to allow our children to experience the better parts of childhood versus some of the things that we carried through that were just sort of assumed that that's the way everybody behaved back then, so to speak.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. There's a lot to unpack.
Yeah, I know. I'm sorry. I'm not trying to make you uncomfortable either. I just
not at all. No. It just gets you thinking. Like,
yeah. Well, let's do this.
And now it's time for self-diagnosis.
So you just shared that you have seen a therapist. Do you continue to see one? Do you manage your own mental health right now? Do you think about how do I manage it? What do you do to keep yourself mentally fit?
I still meet with a therapist. I used to meet weekly. Now it's like once or twice a month kind of thing. Definitely feel like at a way better place in my life and mentally, and a little bit more. Like I think just learning how to just navigate through life. Relationships, jobs, like all of the above. Like I feel like therapy has helped so much in me just be able to deal with the hard situations in life that, I could naturally have a bad response to, but I could also take a step back and think, all right, this is a problem. What is actually the best thing for me, and what's the best thing for me to do? How can I, not let an emotion like dictate this situation, but obviously emotions are great in certain realms, but especially professionally, like when it comes to job wise, like learning to manage all that and I'm in management, so I have to learn to deal with people, and like learning how to navigate through that is something that I think therapy has helped with. So in my personal life and professional, I think it's been very beneficial and very helpful for me.
Yeah, no, that's great. And it's a great answer. It's very transparent. I appreciate that. Before I forget, and I want to be very cautious with how I'm about to ask this, because if the answer is a yes, I don't. It's personal, but let me ask this question. I've recently encountered this with a few people who injure themselves. Who've gone down that road of self-injury, self-harm. People I love very much. And I'm curious, did you ever have to deal with that? Were you ever dealing with that? Did you have to overcome that sort of aspect of the mental crisis that people suffer?
No, for me, I think it was actually kind of like a silly thought. Maybe not silly is the right word, but I remember when I was younger, especially, and just hearing about, people that cut and like stuff like that. Like I always looked at myself as almost kind of like a wuss, because I was like, I don't want to hurt myself, but I want like to hurt myself. Like, so I felt the desire to, but I never actually did. Oh,
right. That's all right.
I just flipped.
That's the best part about doing it live. Yeah, now we got the whole 16:9 version of you. All right, keep going. Sorry.
That was random. I didn't even touch anything.
That's bizarre.
So, but yeah, no, I didn't. I didn't deal with that.
Okay.
I guess that's not exactly true. I remember just being like I was pretty angry as well when I was a kid, especially like. I remember in junior high, I got like sent to my room and just got mad and went to go punched the wall and I hit a stud, broke my hand.
Yeah, that'll happen.
So I guess, yeah, there's a different side to that. So yeah, but yeah, I think that would be the only kind of example.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that's good. That's good. Can I tell you a quick story?
Absolutely.
Cool. So you're talking about broken hands. So I did something quite similar. So back in 1990, I remember the day, September 17th. I remember because it's my mother's birthday. That's the only reason actually I remember. But it was a really insane day. I am not much of a video gamer now. Like, I'm not a gamer. I don't sit online and play Halo and all the other stuff. I don't do that. But back then, let's see, I was almost 24. So, 23 years old, almost 24. And I was playing, it was a Nintendo, the old NES, right? And I was playing some game that was incredibly difficult. Back then, the difficulty level settings on these games were bonkers. And I was playing this once. I'm sitting on the floor. My son, at the time, my 35-year-old son is sitting next to me. He's a whopping, 1-year-old. And I'm playing this video game and I cannot get past this part. And I tried like 40 times. I just kept doing it 40 times. Boom, boom, boom. I kept missing it. Finally, the last time I jump over this gap or whatever, and I missed again. And I got mad and I threw the controller down and I punched the floor. And I broke my hand.
Oh, dang.
Oh, I mean, it hurt so bad. I punched it with, that kind of anger that you want to take out on somebody that you've always hated. And broken like down into my forearm. It was bad. Like all the bones broke down the pinky side and everything. Oh. I was in the military at the time and I had to go to the, like the Navy, I don't know, whatever they call it. But the corpsman, he's like, wow, this is a boxer's fracture. This is a significant boxer's fracture. What happened? I'm like, I tripped over I totally lied. I tripped over my 1-year-old boy when he was in the living room because I was just so embarrassed by the idiocy of it. Well, anyway.
I know, I totally understand that.
Yeah. So cut to 2 weeks later, I've got this full arm cast on and I'm right-handed. So I've been like brushing and shaving with my left hand for the last, couple of weeks. And I decide to get out the video game. And I'm sitting there on the floor playing the game. I can't really use my right hand very well. I can just press the A button like this. And first time I got to that section, I jumped right over the hole. And I'm like, I just should have just put the stupid thing down. But for some reason, I just let my failed human condition get to me. And I blasted the floor with my hand and suffered severe consequences. So no cool ending to the story outside of don't be an idiot and let your emotions get in the way.
Oh, yeah. No, I totally get that. It's those times that you're like, man, I wish there was a pillow right there.
Yeah, maybe that's a word of advice. Maybe when you're playing a video game, just put pillows all around you. So when you want to really unleash, at least you're going to protect yourself somewhat.
Yeah. No, it's funny because I don't really do that anymore. Like when I was a kid, I definitely would just get really mad and didn't know how to deal with it. Mm-hmm. But as an adult, it's funny. I was talking to my therapist about that and they're like, well, that's okay. To let out energy, just make sure it's directed in a healthy place, like a pillow. I was like,
right.
That's an interesting perspective. I never heard somebody say that it's okay to feel that way. That, that's a totally normal thing. Cause it's like that, a total shameful feeling when you feel like, you're like, why do I feel like I needed to do this? And it's like, when it's something that you understand is actually, no, it's normal and it's okay to have a release of energy. Just make sure it's directed in a non-harmful, way.
Right.
Just it's like screaming in a pillow, Speaking of pillows, it's like sometimes you need to scream, but you don't want to be out in the middle of public. I mean, you do you.
Yeah,
but
yeah, of course. I do that in the car when I'm coming home from something or just feeling miserable about something. And a lot of it has to do with prayer. Actually, for me, I know that sounds absurd, but I'm of the firm belief that God, and I do believe, as you well know. But for listeners who don't believe, okay, rock and roll. But I have cried out to God, yelled at God, called God names. I know he can handle it. He's the king of the universe. But I've found that the car or the shower are the two best places for me to have an actively engaged prayer of vitriol directed towards my creator.
Hey, wherever you're comfortable at is the important thing, car feels like a safe space, and, shower, usually nobody's around when you're in the shower. So
that's true. Yeah, that's true. My neighbors maybe can hear me, but okay. So look, the show is called Sentimental Illness. One of my curiosities is, what does my guest have a sentimentality or a nostalgia towards? And I'm curious, what kind of memories, people, music, experiences are you sentimental about?
Definitely my touring career. So I still do music. I still write. I play like every single Sunday at different churches.
Okay.
Like helping out with their worship programs. So I definitely keep busy and keep attuned that way. But when I used to tour and do music full time for a living, I just had so many incredible experiences, made so many lifelong friends, and like it definitely is like a fond memory for me of that time. And for me, it was a decision on my part to quit touring.
Right.
I didn't think for my mental health it was right for me.
Oh.
I actually quit at the height of my career.
Yeah.
I just felt like I needed to have community, because the problem with me is I went straight from 17 years old straight into full-time touring. And, I was, like you mentioned earlier, I was in my Prius. I was by myself a lot of times. And that at first, like, I thought I could do that for like, till I was like 70.
Right.
And then I dealt with some life hardships, close family scares of like my dad almost died once, and like I was gone on the road when this all happened, and it was just like stuff like that. Like it's just like I started getting like
anxiety. Yeah.
So I did this concert, and actually this is a funny one of my. I wouldn't say my favorite story, but I always look back at it as like this is like a really funny moment.
Sure.
But I played a lot in the Christian scene, so you have to be a certain way.
Yeah, you have to behave. You have to behave. That's the best way to put it. You don't get to be a normie.
So I was playing this. I was opening for this like fairly conservative Christian band on this tour, and we were playing this camp, and it was really funny because every date of this tour, they're the headliner, and they were outselling me, like, which was totally normal, like in merchandise and stuff, like to be expected. But this one show, which I had a full-on panic attack, not on stage, right after I left, was I was playing, and I was like, "You guys all excited for this band?" Like, the singer's got, and this is so like it's so funny looking back at this, but I was like, the singer's got a damn good voice. But I was playing for like this high school Christian, right, and like saying the word like "damn" was like so faux pas, especially for this band. And I was just like, I'm sorry, my Matt, and I just like finished the set. I went off stage, and I just had a full blown panic attack outside, like, and I never had that in my entire life. Like, it was the first time, like a total anxiety attack, and I was like hyperventilating, And then I pulled myself together and I went inside, and it was the most merch I'd sold that entire year.
Right. Wow.
What I thought was like, and the youth pastor even called me up and had me come back out to that church like a few months later to play, and like it was a huge turnout. It was actually in Washington. I don't remember which part, but I just thought that was so funny because I was just so like felt defeated and felt like I just ruined like everything. And but that was also the day that I had the revelation that I was like, I think I need to start looking into getting out of touring. Like this whole anxiety attack thing was so weird, and like I didn't like. I wish I wanted to be home like right then. Like I wanted to just be like home with my family and friends.
Okay.
And I didn't really have any close friends back home during that time. And so I definitely believe I made a total right call in quitting touring because I have now relationships here, and obviously I wouldn't have met my wife if it wasn't for that.
Right.
That I just like am very, very grateful for, that have helped me in my journey significantly.
Yeah. Wow. No, I love that story. It's so true. What's really interesting to me is that people outside of, well, any sort of Christianity, meaning like whether it's attending church or a Bible study or listening to a certain type of music or whatever, there's an assumption that Christians, and granted, some of them do, and I'm not poo-pooing anyone here, but that Christians somehow feel as though because we're saved, that makes us better, or that makes us more pious, or more elite, or right that's sort of the idea of, well, we've been won by the one, so therefore, you know what I mean, and I guess what I'm trying to say is there's an assumption that we're not humans. And I'm not just talking about slipping like you saying damn good singer on stage. I'm talking about
bad word.
Yeah. just right. Just this idea that, I mean, okay, so my pastor of my church is a metalhead. Okay. So when metal bands come to town, I mean, come on, dude. No metal bands are like, gee, guys, how are you doing? Golly, this is wonderful. I'm smashing ready. You know what I mean? They're just F-bomb city, right?
Yeah.
And the next day we're at church and he's on the pulpit saying, so Rob and I went to go see Gojira last night. And it was fantastic. Like the energy in the room, and it was like, just reminded me. And then he uses that story to talk about, the way we're living and how you can embrace that regardless of what you assume is right coming off the stage, or what you assume a message is because a pundit on radio or Fox News or somebody told you that this is how these people think, and therefore, you know what I mean, it's evil. It's like, if it's not for Jesus, it's for the devil. And it's not. No, it's not.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, it's and look, again, not knocking like a Calvinist sort of approach, but extremism, you know what I mean? I mean, the beauty of grace is it overcomes extremism, you know?
Yeah. No,
I mean,
there's a lot of extremism nowadays, and especially the Christian culture.
Yeah, the Christian nationalism thing that's happening in the States is really, it's beyond sad. It's upsetting. And I mean, I've even found myself, this is awful, I'm about to expose myself here, but I have found myself saying, if we ever went into a civil war, like I would almost find pleasure in taking out a whole bunch of Christian nationalists because they're insane. Like, I don't understand it. And I know I'm not supposed to feel that way. I know I'm not supposed to say it out loud. I'm sorry, Lord, for despising some of your people, but I despise that mindset that says, you will follow my particular way at all costs. And by the way, This is what Jesus said. And it's not. And the country was not founded the way you think it was. I mean, it was founded on the idea of being able to celebrate who you were and to get away from the Church of England It was actually to get out from under piety. But God bless America.
It's
On that politics thing.
Well, and not to dive into straightforward politics, but more ambiguous. Sure. It's just like so funny, like all the stuff I see on Facebook. I see all these. I see a lot of people that some people I know, some people I don't, because they just added me years ago because they saw me at a concert or something like that. And there's a lot of like very conservative, like I would say crazy. Mm-hmm. I know you're not supposed to use the word crazy, but these people are crazy. Christian people, and I still follow them. Or I still I'm like every now and then I'm like, I want to delete this person. But I'm like, no, I want to make sure I understand that there's people out there that believe certain things. Because for a while I was like, people don't actually believe the world is flat, right?
Right.
And
Good for
I'm
you,
like,
though.
Oh my gosh, there's people that actually believe in flat Earth and that believe, that the Bible says that. I'm like, okay, but I want to make sure that I'm like following these people so that I can at least understand understand what people are believing nowadays.
Right. I don't want to go to a dinner conversation with them because I know I'm going to get angry, but I also know that it's good to know who they are, not so I can stay away from them, but because people still need to be loved regardless of their disparate beliefs.
Yeah. And I think that, I think people are just so misled is one of the biggest things. Like AI is a great example of how like the AI images and stuff is like insane. And and that's another thing that's on Instagram that's been making me or Facebook that's making me so like frustrated lately is seeing all these people posting like these like AI images of like Jesus or certain presidential people and going like, look how great this is. I'm like, you understand that like in your last post you're talking about AI is the devil, and then you're posting something of a white Jesus,
right?
That AI like influenced, and it's just like what like you don't understand even what you believe, like.
Yeah. I'm not going to name the person, but I did see a couple of months ago. I saw a person make a comment about a former president, and he said, "Well, it's if you think of it this way, you can tell that he comes directly from God, that he's meant to redeem us because there's a T on the cover of the book he's holding." I know everybody right now listening is rolling their eyes, but there are people who not only believe the earth is flat, but believe that he's a savior. That God's, like God uses the broken. Okay, yeah, he's going to use a completely clearly self-serving person to heal a broken nation and take us back to the founding fathers, who, by the way, were atheist or just trying to again escape the church's strange man-made rules that have nothing to do with the grace of Christ.
Yeah.
But anyways,
no,
okay.
It is just absolutely funny. I mean, I will say this, that like without getting into the subject, I just remember somebody was like, they were talking about, oh man, I don't know how I can say this ambiguous without.
You don't have to. I mean, if you can figure it out, that's cool.
No, yeah, never mind. I'm gonna keep this one in my head.
Okay.
Maybe we can talk about it after this.
Sure. Hang on and we'll chat. Okay, I got to get back to the sentimental illness thing. What are you terrified or irrational about? I mean, you mentioned anxiety before, but that's kind of an overarching thing. What are you, maybe drill down a bit. What terrifies you, scares you? What do you have weird feelings about? What is that?
Snakes. I hate snakes.
Really? Snakes?
Oh, snakes give me like so much anxiety. And I grew up in it, like the town I grew up in, there was tons of rattlesnakes everywhere.
And cool.
Yeah. And I remember one time there was one that was going after my family dog, and I was like 5, and my dad went and chopped its head off.
Oh.
And then it just started hopping after the dog. And I was like, thing of nightmares. So snakes.
The head kept going after the dog.
I have vivid dreams that I remember from like 20 years ago of snakes that I woke up in a sweat and panicking from. So anyways,
oh my gosh.
Nothing that's obviously not too deep of a scare, but it is for me.
Yeah. Okay. And now here's a good one. Here's my last one of this particular set of self-diagnosed questions. But most artists have a very, very strong internal monologue, right? Inner monologue. They are constantly thinking, constantly battling in their own head. They're arguing with themselves, trying to figure things out. One, I'm curious if you have an inner monologue that's significantly loud. And 2, does it ever become an outer monologue?
Yeah, I'm pretty vocal. I've always been told that I'm good at speaking my mind. Like my wife is like always mentioning how I'm very good at like letting her know where I'm at, like emotionally, mentally, like my thoughts and feelings on stuff. Like I'm a over communicator, so what you see is what you get. Like,
yeah.
I mean, obviously I've learned to like, for example, like 2 minutes ago, like there's certain things I'm like, nah, maybe I'll just keep that one a little under wraps.
Right. Shut it down.
Like I remember when 2020 first happened, I was like, it was the first time in my life I ever got really political. And I was like, and I realized I hated that side of me where I was like,
yeah,
I was alienating people from my life, like in family and friends, because of different opinions. And like for me, I'm like, when it comes to that kind of stuff, I like to keep it close to my chest, not because I don't want to talk about something I believe in, but because I'm under the impression that, especially nowadays in 2024 with AI and all this stuff, it's not being able to trust like some news sources. It's just like I don't even know what like the right answer is sometimes for these things, because It's like there's a million different sides to every issue. Yeah. And I have certain issues that I believe pretty strongly about, and some that I'm like 100% on, but there's other ones that I'm like, I think this is the right answer, but I don't know beyond a shadow of doubt. So who am I to talk about this?
Yeah, and right is relative too, right? Because it could be your take, it could be how you see it through your internal lens, whatever that is, right? So
yeah,
yeah, I understand the idea of sort of shutting down anything that will cause dissonance in the room is probably the wisest move, and it's definitely the sign of a maturing man. So congratulations to you, my friend.
I've made it.
You're on your way. Heaven awaits.
I just got I'm like 5% of the way there. Yeah. No, but like you were talking earlier about extremism, and like that for me is like the thing. I was just talking to my older brother because him and I differ on like political stuff a lot, and we like almost like we had a horrible like relationship in 2020 because of it, and now we're definitely at a much better spot. And I was even talking the other day, and he was like, he sends me like certain like memes here and there, and I'll, like sometimes I'm like, I don't really like that one. I don't really agree with it. And he was just like, he has this viewpoint of my belief system. I was like, you don't even know actually what I believe. I'm more actually understanding of people is the way I like to approach it. Like I have friends on both political sides, and I disagree with both of them on certain issues, and I mostly agree with one side more than the other. I'll say that, but I definitely tend to understand at least where people are coming from.
Yeah.
Because people argue because there's an argument to be made a lot of times.
Right.
I like to choose the one that is always the most loving option, is kind of my take on politics. So like, instead of going like, well, I think like, because this seems like the right answer, I have to be right, blah, blah, blah. No, it's like, at the end of the day, how can I love the person across from me is literally, I think, the only, like, if we all kind of thought more about that instead of being right, or, thinking somebody's stupid because they believe a certain thing.
Right.
I think we'd be in a much better spot. Obviously, that's a pipe dream, but that's kind of where I stand.
Yeah, smart. And certainly wise with your brother, especially because, when you're talking about blood, obviously there's a lot of history there. And the human experience basically says, well, we don't get to take things back because we always remember, right? So like if you get in this huge fight with your mother, for example, and you say these awful things to her, you can come back together. You can sort of be redeemed by apologizing to each other. But there's this memory, this echo of a behavior that happened once that you never really fully removed from your life. It's just stuck there somewhere in your history. And it does affect your life. And I guess for listeners, I would say, when my brother died in 2020, he did not die from COVID, but he had asthma his entire life. And he passed away in the early part of 2020. And he and I had been at odds our entire lives. And we were able to, in the 4 months before he passed away, we were able to come together to be brothers who genuinely just enjoyed being around each other, and that had never happened before. So, kudos to you for trying to do the right thing, and I hope listeners will pursue family members to re-engage and to love them, regardless of the differences, and just shut up about the differences because you're never going to resolve that stuff. Just love them for who they are, not necessarily what they think about.
Well, I'm sorry to hear about your brother.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate that. Yeah, it was by far the most devastating death. I lost my father in 2016, and that was awful until Mike died in 2020. And I think it's because it's out of order. My mom's still alive, and so there's this idea that she's lost her son, which is sad for me, and then I've lost my brother, which is sad and confusing because sibling rivalry is such a thing, for everybody. You just kind of feel like the same token that they're always going to be there. And then when they one day disappear, never to return, and they don't necessarily, you weren't necessarily 100% back together as blood, that leaves gaps in people's lives that they carry for the rest of their lives, and they suffer from it. And so I'm very fortunate that as sad as it was to lose Mike, that we were able to make peace way before we had to make peace, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And I can only move forward from here and remember him with great combination of love and mystery. He was a strange fellow, but the one thing was true is he loved me in a way I never understood. Like, why would you like a guy you don't get along with? But boy, he sure did. And he made it very clear that he loved me. So that was really cool. So thank you. I know we're up at the edge here, but tell me about your work with the Michelin Star restaurant. Why did you choose this direction? Because I know there was a period of time where you were deeply focused on coffee.
Yeah.
And so how'd you get here?
So I was working coffee for like 8 years, and I kind of got to the point of plateauing. Like I was at the most successful coffee business in the Sacramento region, actually one of the more successful ones in even Northern California. And I, got up into management. I kind of literally got into, as far as finances go, like I got to the the highest I can get in the company.
Yeah.
And I just was like, realized I'm like, well, I've kind of learned almost everything that I want to about the coffee world. And I really enjoyed making cocktails at home for friends and really like love the craft of that world. And I was like already kind of interested in that, but I was like, I don't want to work in that area because I don't really like the hours and I don't know if, it's not as stable as the job I have. But then one day, I was approached by my now boss, Chris Barnum Dan. He, like I mentioned, he worked at this guitar shop in Auburn, California called Encore, and sold me a guitar years ago,
Nice.
20 years ago to be exact. And it's the main one that I've played ever since. And I was working at my first coffee shop job in Roseville about 10 years ago. And he walks in one day and recognized me and was like, Josiah, like, what the heck? Good to see you. And I was like, oh my gosh, like, Chris, great to see you too. What are you doing? He's like, oh, I work as a chef at this restaurant, like right across from you. You should come in sometime. And I sadly never got a chance to go to the restaurant he was at then. But then when I moved to Sacramento and started working here, he opened the restaurant called Localis, which is where I'm at right now, like right down the street. And so he started coming into that coffee shop all the time. And then he finally went into his restaurant, and it was one of the best meals I've ever had in my life. And this was like when he first started out, like 9 years ago, with the restaurant. And it ended up being like my favorite place to go to. And it became my wife and my anniversary spot when we were dating. We would go there every year on our anniversary, and it was just our absolute favorite restaurant. Right. And then one day, when 2020 happened, fine dining, coursed out dinner place was not the easiest restaurant to survive, especially with zero outdoor seating.
Right.
And so he asked me to come help because most of his staff had left. And so I was just helping him package up to go tasting menus and like things like that. And then he ended up going on and win his Food Network TV show called The Globe. And with that, he was able to, I think it's one of the things that helped that restaurant survive. And then when indoor dining opened up, he asked me if I wanted to come on full time. He was going to do a total overhaul of the entire restaurant, change it up. And I came on board with this team, and a lot of us got hired on at the same time, and been working there for about 3 years. After like 6 months of working there, our bartender at the time left. And it was kind of up to the servers, which I was a server at the time, to cover the bartending shifts until we figured it out. And then he was like, you seem like you have a knack for this. Do you want to take it over as the full-time job? I was like, sure. And so I started as a bar manager with practically no experience in that field outside of what I learned at home and as a participant, visiting like my friends that were craft cocktail bartenders. And I just started doing that. And it's gone very well ever since.
Congrats.
Thank you. So that year was the same year that we got our Michelin Star, which was huge. And then
massive.
we were trained. Yeah, it was pretty unbelievable. One of definitely highlights of my past 10 years for sure. And yeah, so what my job looks like is it's mostly because it's a 12-course tasting menu restaurant. You just come in and everyone does the same 12 courses. That's what it is.
Wow.
And with 12 courses, we have 12 pairings.
Wow.
So we have
it's a lot of work.
We have a non-alcoholic pairing. So almost all made from scratch, 12 different pairings. We change this out every 5 weeks as well. So big overhaul all the time. We do mostly wine, but a mixture of wine, sake, beer, and cocktails for pairing. So I'll do I'll have to come up with anywhere between 2 to 6 cocktail pairings. I don't deal with any of the wine side of things. My boss is a sommelier.
Oh, gotcha.
And so he deals with that. I deal with all the cocktails and spirit side of things. And we just did the most, I would say, like most interesting menu that we've ever done this past week. We're doing a Lord of the Rings theme menu. Yeah,
there's moss on all the food.
Actually, sadly, no. But so we basically, my boss has always been like, travel to Thailand and then come back and we'll do like a Thai menu. And then he'll go to Spain, comes back and we'll do like a Spanish menu. And then one day he was just like, I want to do Lord of the Rings. And so, he was like, boil them back from stick in a stew. That sounds like a great dish. And so he just started with that. And it's been a lot of fun. Ironically, so for years between like my friend group and people like that, I would get the moniker and people would call me Frodo because I look like Elijah Wood. You
do. I mean, you don't look like Frodo, but you do look like Elijah Wood, which of course, yeah, I get you. I know.
And I'm not like the tallest guy in the room. And so, but it's funny enough, I haven't been called Frodo once this entire menu.
It's always how it works. And you were correct in your use of irony too, because that's exactly what irony is. The moment you should, you're not. It doesn't make any sense why, but
I do have to say though, pretty proud of this moment. We had our first menu meeting for this menu and I disappeared into the restroom for a second and then came out with a full head to toe Frodo costume, including a curly wig and big slippers that looked like hairy feet.
Oh my gosh. So are you gonna break that out for the actual whole experience over this run? Are you gonna wear that as your costume for every day?
Every day. No, absolutely not. I definitely enjoyed the slippers when I was sitting in the menu meeting. It was very comfortable.
Yeah.
No, definitely that was a one-time thing.
Okay. Well, look, let me ask you this last question, which is just to go back to your past. Plus, I'm going to play a little bit of your music underneath it while I ask. But I mean, what happened? Okay, that's not fair. We already kind of talked about that. Maybe a better way to put it is, are you going to do music ever again, even just for fun? And I mean, in the sense of at least writing something, getting it off to Lincoln Brewster. You know what I mean? Is there a chance we're going to hear any Josiah James music ever again?
Well, I did release a song in the past year. Called Fall for You, which is a song I wrote for my wife that I surprised her with on our wedding day during our first dance.
Nice.
We started off with the song that we both agreed on, and then halfway through we stopped it and had the DJ play that song.
Nice.
So I released that. But speaking of the Lincoln Brewster thing, so I wrote a song called Made New.
Yeah.
And he heard it and asked if he could do it, and we ended up meeting up together and rewriting some of the verses a little bit and wrote a whole new bridge. And then it became a pretty much a very similar song, but a little different. Like all the tracks that I had recorded when I was going to release it under my thing, we just kind of put into his song. So I actually have my own version of the song that nobody's, outside of like a very select group of friends and some like record labels, nobody had heard this version of the song. And I finally, after years, got the permission from the publishing company that I could actually release my version of it. And so only caveat is I can't call it Made New exactly. I'd call it Made New in something else or just a totally different name, just because the lyrics and like other stuff is a little bit different.
Right. It's been made new.
It made new. Yeah. So I was thinking about just calling it Made New Taylor's version.
Nice.
No, I'm just kidding.
Nice. I'll let you. Don't really do that, but I'll let you if you feel driven to do it. Look, it sounds weird to say this, but I love you. I do. I think you're just a fantastic guy. I've always loved your music. I love this song, Chasing the Wind, which is playing in the background here. I think you well, I mean, I don't want to say deserve, but you do. You deserve the best things, man. You're a fantastic human.
Thank you. Too kind.
Well, and super friendly. And yeah, I've always felt an affinity towards you. And you're an amazing musician. I hope you never completely let that go. So thank you for everything, Josiah. And just bless you and your family and your future and everything else that you got going on. And we'll see you soon, okay?
Thank you, Rob.
Yeah, and does the Sentimental Illness people who are actually watching today that care enough about this show, thanks for being here. We're going to head out now, so bless you all. See you guys.
See ya.
You've been listening to Sentimental Illness with Rob Leland. Our theme song, Gore-Tex Weather Report, is provided graciously by Jürgen Munkaby. Don't forget to support the show by subscribing wherever you get your podcast media. It also helps us a lot if you rate the show online, so jump out there and give us 5 stars. And lastly, always remember, your brain will overthink everything, but your heart can never love enough. See you soon.